I woke up on Christmas morning to the sound of my son crying downstairs. My eyes flew open, and I immediately noticed that my husband's side of the bed was empty. He must be downstairs, I thought. Probably comforting our son about a present he didn't like. I rushed down, expecting to find them on the couch surrounded by wrapping paper. Instead, I saw my 7-year-old sitting alone in front of the Christmas tree, sobbing. My husband was nowhere to be seen. But that wasn't even the worst part. The tree was completely bare. There was nothing under it. Not a single present. "Mommy!" My son cried. "Why didn't Santa come? Was I bad this year?" I froze. None of this made sense. Mark and I had wrapped those presents together the night before, well past 2 in the morning. We had even taken photos. Our wedding slideshow had been playing in the background while we talked about how lucky we were, how grateful we felt for our life. Now everything was gone. I tried to be good, my son whispered through tears. I shared my toys. I left Santa milk and cookies. Why doesn't Santa love me? I knelt down and gently held his face. My heart was breaking, but I couldn't let him see it. "Sweetheart, Santa did come," I said softly. "There was just a mix-up. Mommy is going to make a few calls, and he'll bring the presents, okay?" He sniffed. "Really?" "Yes. But first, I need you to go outside and build the biggest snowman you can. So big Santa can see it from his sleigh." His eyes lit up. He wiped his nose, pulled on his snow clothes, and ran outside. The moment the door closed, I let myself cry. Just for a second. Then I went upstairs. I reached for my phone to call Mark, but something caught my eye. His closet was empty. I opened his drawers, his wallet was gone. His keys too. I tried calling him. Blocked. I texted him. The message turned green. Social media, blocked everywhere. I stood there, shaking. Nothing made sense. Had someone taken him? Had he taken the presents? Was this some kind of breakdown? Then I remembered the tracker. 6 months earlier, Mark hadn't come home one night. His phone had died, and I panicked. It turned out his brother had surprised him, and they'd lost track of time. Still, I had been so frightened that he agreed to put a tracker on his car. He said I could check it whenever I wanted. I opened the app. His location was still live. He hadn't turned it off. I zoomed in. He was about 90 minutes away, at an address I didn't recognize. My mind raced. He left the tracker on. This couldn't be what it looked like. Maybe he'd gone out to get a last-minute gift. I went back downstairs. My son was outside putting the final touches on his snowman. "Mommy, did you call Santa?" "I did, baby. And I have good news." His face brightened. "We have to go on a little adventure to get the presents." "A treasure hunt?" he asked excitedly. "Exactly like a treasure hunt." We got into the car. He talked nonstop the entire drive about what he hoped Santa had brought him. I smiled and nodded, but my hands were clenched tightly on the steering wheel. We passed the city, then the countryside, and finally entered a quiet, upscale neighborhood I'd never been to before. The GPS announced, "You have arrived." That's when I saw it. Mark's car was parked in the driveway. My blood ran cold. "Mommy, is this where the presents are?" my son asked. "I think so," I said quietly. I took his hand and walked up to the front door, my heart pounding. I rang the doorbell. A woman answered. She was pretty, wearing a Christmas sweater. I recognized her instantly. Laura, Mark's high school girlfriend. The one he'd never quite stopped talking about. "Hi," she said politely. "Can I help you?" Before I could answer, I heard footsteps. Mark appeared behind her. The moment he saw me, his face drained of color. We locked eyes. Then I looked past him. In the living room, 2 children were playing with presents. Our presents. They were wrapped in the same paper we had used the night before. On the couch sat a jewelry box, the one I had bought for myself. My son tugged on my hand. "Mommy, that boy has the race car I asked for." Laura turned to Mark, confused. "Honey, do you know her?" I stepped forward. "I'm his wife. And this is his son." Her face went pale. "You told me you were divorced," she said, turning sharply to Mark. I looked at the children. "Are those his?" She shook her head. "No. They're mine." From my first marriage? I stared at Mark, disbelief turning into anger. You left your own child on Christmas morning, I said. You stole his presents to play pretend with someone else's family? My son looked up at him, tears streaming down his face. Daddy. Why did you take my Christmas presents? Am I not good enough? Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. Laura slapped him hard across the face. Save your explanations, she said coldly. Get out. She closed the door behind him. Mark stood outside for a long time, ringing the bell, begging. Eventually, he gave up and walked away. Later, we learned he spent the night drinking, passed out in the cold, and suffered severe injuries. His life changed completely after that night. But what stayed with me the most wasn't what happened to him. It was the moment my son stopped asking where his father was. At first, it happened quietly. The next morning, he didn't wake me by jumping on the bed the way he used to. He padded into the kitchen in his socks, opened the fridge, and poured himself orange juice with both hands like he didn't trust the world to hold the carton steady. He sat at the table and stared at the wood grain. Do you want pancakes? I asked, forcing my voice to sound normal. He shrugged without looking up. I set the batter aside, knelt beside him, and brushed his hair back the way I had since he was a baby. Sweetheart, I said softly. You didn't do anything wrong. None of this is because you weren't good enough. He blinked slowly, then whispered, It's okay, Mom. Those 3 words knocked the air out of me. Kids weren't supposed to sound like that. Not at 7. Not when they still believed in snowmen that could guide Santa through the sky. I wanted to rage. I wanted to break something. I wanted to call Mark 100 times just to hear his voice and tell him exactly what I thought of him. But I didn't. I cleaned up wrapping paper that wasn't there. I washed mugs that didn't need washing. I kept moving because if I stopped, I knew I would fall apart. Mark tried to contact me later that day from a different number. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail anyway. His voice sounded hoarse and unsteady, like he'd been crying or yelling, maybe both. Emma. Please. I made a mistake. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. I just needed to see her. I needed closure. I didn't think you'd. Please don't tell Noah. Noah. Our son. He couldn't even say his own child's name with any certainty. I deleted it. The next few days were a blur of school drop-offs and frozen smiles. People still wished us Merry Christmas at the grocery store checkout. Neighbors waved. A cashier complimented Noah's little reindeer hat. He nodded politely. Then he took the hat off the moment we walked outside and stuffed it in his coat pocket. On December 27th, Mark showed up at our door. Or tried to. I saw him on the camera, standing crookedly on the porch, his face bruised, his hands raw. He looked thinner already, like life had peeled something off him overnight. He knocked twice and then leaned his forehead against the doorframe. I didn't open it. I sat on the stairs with my knees pulled to my chest and stared at the wood as if staring hard enough could turn it into a wall of stone. Noah's footsteps padded behind me. He didn't ask who it was. He just sat beside me and pressed his shoulder to mine like a tiny anchor. Mark's voice drifted through the door, muffled but familiar. Emma. I know you can hear me. Please. Let me see him. Let me explain. Noah didn't flinch. He didn't cry. He didn't run to the door the way he used to when Mark came home with fast food and apologies and promises. He just whispered, so quietly I barely heard him, Don't open it. My throat tightened. I didn't move. Mark knocked again, harder this time. Buddy, he called. Noah, it's Dad. Come here, okay? Please. Noah's fingers curled into my sleeve. He didn't answer. A long silence followed, and then Mark's voice cracked. I'm sorry, he said, like the words were too big for his mouth. I'm so sorry. I messed up. I messed up everything. Noah stared at the floor and said, flat and small, okay. That was all. Just okay. Not I forgive you. Not I miss you. Not why. Okay. Mark stayed on the porch another few minutes. I heard him breathing. Heard the soft thud of his fist against the railing, like he wanted to hit something but didn't have the strength. Then his footsteps receded. When the camera alert stopped and the porch went empty again, I realized I had been holding my breath. Noah stood up and walked to the kitchen. He opened the cabinet, pulled out a glass, and said without turning around, "Can I have chocolate milk?" "Yes," I managed. I poured it for him, watching the swirl turn pale brown, watching his small hands wrap around the cup like it was the only warm thing in the world. That night, after I tucked him in, he asked the question in the dark. "Not about Mark. About me." "Mom?" "Yes, baby. Are you gonna leave too?" My heart splintered. I crossed the room and climbed onto the edge of his bed, careful not to jostle his stuffed dinosaur. I cupped his cheek with my palm. "Never," I whispered. "Not for anything. Not for anyone." He stared at me for a long moment, searching my face like he was trying to decide if grown-ups could still be trusted. Then he nodded and turned onto his side. "Okay," he said again. "Then I'm okay." I stayed in his room long after his breathing evened out. I sat in the soft glow of his nightlight and thought about the photos Mark and I had taken at 2 in the morning, laughing like our life was solid. How easy it was to fake stability when you didn't know where the cracks were. On New Year's Eve, Mark tried again. This time he didn't come to the house. He waited outside Noah's school. I found out because the office called me, voice tense. "Mrs. Carter? Your husband is here. He says he wants to see Noah. He's not looking well." My hands went cold around my phone. I didn't answer immediately, and in that second of silence, the receptionist added, carefully, "Noah saw him through the window. He went very quiet." I grabbed my keys and drove like my tires were on fire. Mark was leaning against the fence when I arrived, bundled in a coat that wasn't warm enough for the weather. His face was paler than it should have been, and his lips had a faint bluish tinge. Severe injuries, the doctor had said when the hospital called to confirm his condition. Hypothermia. Tissue damage. A nasty infection from exposure. Months of rehab. Possibly permanent complications. He looked at me like he expected me to soften at the sight of him. I didn't. Noah stood inside the glass doors, his teacher's hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Mark lifted a trembling hand. "Buddy," he called, voice strained. "Come here. Please." Noah stared at him. Then he did something that made my chest ache in a whole new way. He took one step back. Just one. But it was enough. Mark's eyes filled. He turned his gaze to me like a drowning man. "Emma, please," he whispered. "I know I don't deserve it, but just let me talk to him. I'll fix it. I swear I'll fix it." I stepped closer, close enough to smell the hospital antiseptic that still clung to him, and I kept my voice calm. "You don't get to fix it," I said. "You don't get to break a child and then decide you want to be the hero." His shoulders sagged. "I didn't mean. You meant to leave," I cut in. "You meant to block me. You meant to take the gifts we bought for our son and put them under someone else's tree." His jaw tightened, like he wanted to argue. But there was nothing to argue. He swallowed hard. I was confused. "You were selfish," I corrected. Noah's teacher opened the door slightly and murmured, "Noah, your mom is here." Noah didn't move. He looked straight at Mark through the glass with an expression so blank it terrified me. Mark pressed a hand to the door, palm flat. "Noah," he said, voice breaking. "Say something." Noah's lips parted. For a second, my heart lifted, thinking maybe this was the moment he would finally let the grief out. Instead, he said, quiet and precise, as if he'd practiced it in his head. "I don't have a dad." The words didn't sound dramatic. They sounded like a fact. Like saying the sky was gray. Mark's entire face crumpled. He slid his hand down the glass and covered his mouth, shoulders shaking. Noah turned away before Mark's tears could become his responsibility. He walked past his teacher, out the door, and straight to me. He took my hand like it was the only choice that made sense. As we walked to the car, Mark called after us. "Emma. Please. Don't do this." I stopped and turned, just once. "This isn't me doing something to you," I said. "This is you living with what you did." His knees buckled slightly like the words had weight. And still, Noah didn't look back. In January, I filed for divorce. It wasn't messy the way people imagine messy looks. There were no screaming matches on the front lawn. No dramatic courtroom outburst. Just paperwork. Just dates and signatures. Mark tried to fight for visitation at first, mostly because I think he couldn't stand the label of deadbeat more than he couldn't stand losing us. But then the truth started surfacing, bit by bit, like dirty water creeping into a clean sink. Laura contacted me. Not to apologize for her part, she didn't know me that. She hadn't known. She contacted me because she was furious. She asked to meet, and against my better judgment, I agreed. We sat in a coffee shop, her hands wrapped around a paper cup like she needed something to hold on to. I found out he'd been seeing me for months, she said, voice tight. Not just the holidays. He told me you were unstable. That you used the tracker because you were controlling. That you were separated but wouldn't accept it. My stomach twisted. He used my fear, I whispered. Laura's eyes sharpened. He used everything. And you know what else? She pulled out her phone, thumb shaking, and showed me a screenshot. A message from Mark to her, sent on Christmas Eve at 1:47 in the morning. They'd been texting while he sat beside me on the couch, while the wedding slideshow played, while I thought we were building a family. The message read, I can't do this anymore. I'm coming to you tonight. I'll bring everything. I want to wake up to a real Christmas for once. I stared until the words blurred. Real Christmas. As if Noah and I were cardboard cutouts in Mark's life. Decorations that stopped being charming the moment they required loyalty. Laura leaned forward. I'm telling you this because I'm filing a restraining order. He keeps showing up at my house. He's not stable. I almost laughed at that word. Not stable. The man who had destroyed 2 families because he couldn't handle the quiet responsibility of one. Thank you, I managed, though it tasted bitter. She nodded, eyes glossy. I'm sorry. I really am. When she left, I sat there alone with my coffee and the screenshot and a strange, heavy clarity. Mark hadn't been stolen. He hadn't been sick. He hadn't had a breakdown. He had chosen. Over and over. In March, Noah stopped sleeping with a dinosaur tucked under his chin. He started leaving it on his shelf, lined up with his books like he was growing out of needing something soft to protect him. He stopped checking the window when cars pulled into the driveway. He stopped pausing at the word dad in other kids' conversations. He began to laugh again, small at first, then bigger. One day in April, he ran into the kitchen after school holding a crumpled piece of construction paper. Look, he said, breathless. We made family trees. My heart seized. I braced myself for a trunk with 3 branches, one labeled Dad like a hole in the page. But when he flipped it open, there was a sturdy brown trunk with 2 thick branches. Mom. Noah. And then, taped to the side like an afterthought, was a little leaf that said, Grandma June. My mother. No Mark. He had drawn us as if we were complete. As if we were enough. Do you like it? Noah asked. I swallowed past the lump in my throat and smiled. I love it, I said. It's perfect. That night, when I tucked him in, he asked, can we do our own Christmas next year? Yes, I whispered, smoothing his blanket. A real one. He nodded. No trackers? I blinked. No trackers? He looked at the ceiling and said, almost casually, if someone wants to stay, they stay. If they don't, we don't chase them. My chest tightened. 7-year-olds weren't supposed to say things like that. But there he was, saying it anyway, because his father had forced him to learn it early. I kissed his forehead and whispered, that's right. In June, Mark sent a letter. Not a text. Not a voicemail. A letter, like a man finally realizing he had burned every digital bridge and only paper might slip through the cracks. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the counter for 2 days, staring at it whenever I walked by, feeling the old anger flicker like a dying flame. On the 3rd day, I opened it. His handwriting was shaky. Emma. I don't know how to live with myself. I don't know how to fix what I broke. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know you hate me. I hate me too. I thought I wanted another life. I thought I needed something I missed. I told myself lies until I believed them. I hurt my son. I hurt you. I hurt Laura. I lost everything. My hands are still messed up from the cold. I can't work the way I used to. The doctors say it might be permanent. I deserve that. I deserve worse. But Noah doesn't deserve this. If you ever let me see him, even once, I'll be grateful. If you never do, I'll understand. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him he was always good enough. I pressed the paper to the counter like it might stop my hands from shaking. His consequences were written all over that page: injury, loss, regret. And for a second, the old version of me, the one who loved him, whispered that maybe this was justice. Then I looked through the window. Noah was in the backyard, kneeling in the grass, building something out of sticks and leaves. He was humming to himself. Peaceful. Safe. I folded the letter and slid it into a drawer. Some apologies came too late to be useful. Some truths, once learned, couldn't be unlearned. In September, Noah had his first soccer game of the season. Parents lined the field in folding chairs, coffee cups steaming, voices cheering. Noah ran across the grass like he had rockets in his shoes. When he scored his first goal, he turned automatically toward the sidelines. Not searching. Not scanning. Just turning. His eyes found me instantly. He grinned so wide I thought my heart might burst. I jumped up and waved both arms, screaming his name like I didn't care who heard me. He ran a victory lap, laughing. After the game, he climbed into the car and said, "Did you see that?" "I saw everything," I told him. He leaned his head back against the seat, satisfied. Then, softly, he said, "Mom?" "Yes." "Can we go get hot chocolate?" "Yes, baby." As we pulled away, I caught sight of a man standing across the street near the parking lot, partly hidden behind a tree. Mark. He looked thinner. Older. His posture was stiff, like his body still remembered the cold. He wasn't coming closer. He was just watching. Noah didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and he chose not to. I didn't stop the car. I kept driving. Because a long time ago, Mark had made a choice about what kind of man he wanted to be. And without meaning to, he'd made a choice for Noah too. A child could survive heartbreak. But he shouldn't have to live inside it forever. That December, Noah and I bought our own wrapping paper. Bright red with little snowmen on it. We baked cookies and laughed when the flour exploded across the counter. We picked a tree together and let it lean a little crooked, because perfect didn't matter anymore. On Christmas Eve, I tucked Noah into bed and he whispered, half asleep, "Mom?" "Yes. Santa's gonna find us, right?" I kissed his forehead and smiled into the dark. "Always," I said. "We're easy to find." Because the truth was, we weren't hiding. We weren't lost. We weren't waiting for someone who didn't choose us. We were right where we should have been all along.